What is up, mathletes? Today we're going to look at 5 quick tips to help you succeed in your calculus course. Tip number 1, check your algebra and trig skills, right? So many of the problems, they look bigger than they really are because people have holes in their algebra. So what you want to do in that free time or that spare time, and if you don't have free time and spare time, then go to bed later or wake up earlier. But you got to make time to really work on your algebra skills because so much of your success relies on you being efficient in algebra and really understanding your trig. They go hand to hand in that calculus course. All right, so that's tip number 1. You want to make sure you fill in those gaps, because what those skills are going to allow you to do is they're going to take these complicated problems, but if you have great algebra skills, you're going to make these complicated problems, you're going to break it down and make it look much easier to handle when you apply your new calculus rules to them. All right, tip number 2. All right, and I'm going to get some resistance from some folks, but listen closely. Make sure you get up to speed on your graphing calculator. All right, whether it's Desmos, whether it's some other online program, or if you have a TI-84 calculator or something similar, right? Make sure you know how to utilize that calculator. Here is why. What you're going to see is when you're graphing a lot of these functions, these graphs are going to give you a deeper look at what's really happening. Sometimes you're going to get stuck, right? And by really understanding how the graphs look, it's going to give you some information that you weren't able to see before. And then also it's going to help you connect the dots to connect the algebra or the ideas and theorems that you're looking at and connect them to see visually, how they relate to these functions. So making sure you really know how to use your calculator, your graphing calculator, and it's going to save you so much time because there's some things where we do not need to do by hand. Of course you want to, but it's going to save you some time so you could look at those bigger issues, those deeper ideas. All right, but of course you're not solely, what I'm not telling you to do is to solely rely on those devices, right? You should know how to do everything by hand, but sometimes you want something fast to look at or to even check your answer, right? So again, make sure you know how to use your graphing calculator. Tip number 3, don't just memorize, right? We want to make sure that we know what's going on, that you're able to connect the dots, that you're thinking through these, right? And you could actually see, what's taking place. You do not want to memorize because what's going to happen is they could change the problem slightly in the smallest way, and because they changed it and it doesn't look like this example over here, what happens to most students, and you see this all the time, is they feel completely lost. So for example, they'll watch a lecture and they could follow along, but once the problem is changed slightly or the situation is changed slightly, what happens is they're lost because they spent time trying to memorize steps and memorize certain things instead of understanding the calculus behind the scenes. Tip number 4, helps so many students, and it's the notation, right? A lot of times people don't even know what's being asked of them. All right, the notation is like a curveball to them. So before you move forward, make sure you have that notation down. Make sure you know what's being asked of you, and the notation, make sure you understand what it represents. And the way I think about it is think about it like a text message, right? If someone says LMAO, right? What are they referring to? What are they talking about, right? Because there's so many acronyms and this and that that's supposed to make life easier, right? It's intended to make things go by faster and make things a lot more understandable. But if you don't speak that language, you're going to have no idea of what the person's trying to communicate to you. So make sure that you have that line of communication down. Don't move forward if they throw some new notation at you. Make sure you get that notation down, because ultimately you're learning a new language and you got to figure out, what is this piece of the language telling me, right? Because that's going to be key, because most of the time it's these holes, right? These gaps in math that make math hated by so many people. It's not that it's really hard. Well, I guess it is hard when you don't understand the language, right? So we want to make sure we're filling in all those gaps. Tip number 5. So tip number 5 is actually learning the formulas, because what some people are going to do is they're going to spend so much time trying to memorize the formulas, and it's going to be a waste of time. Well, why do I say that? Well, if you actually learn the formulas, and this is going to happen by you spending time and time again using those formulas to work problems out. So as you learn to understand the formulas, when to use them, what they're all about, right, and use them to solve problems, what's going to happen is by you doing that repetition and working problem after problem, you're going to be writing these formulas like second nature, right? It's like someone asks you your name, you don't think about it because we've done it so much, right? We don't even think about it. So using the formulas over and over, right, getting that practice down, it is going to take some time, but that is really what's going to help you understand the formulas, and it's going to help it stick, right? And once you understand something, you don't forget it, right? You just don't forget it because now you understand the mechanics of how it works. And then it's really going to help you dissect and look at the big picture, right? So again, mathletes, this takes time. Don't think all this is going to happen overnight, right? You just got to be persistent. You got to enjoy the challenge, right? And you're really exercising the gun show up here, right? And making those muscles grow, right? So I want you to have fun in this class. If you're challenged, you're in the right place. If it's too easy, right, we're in the wrong place. So have fun this semester, this school year, and hopefully these quick tips will help you get to that next level. Peace.